Hi, welcome to the Whitey White Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm going to review a film called Into the Blue, which came out in 2005. It stars Paul Walker, Jessica Alba, Scott Conn, Ashley Scott, Josh Brolin, and James Frain. Um, the film begins with an airplane, seemingly flown by like drug cartel members. Oh, this is my phone, light from my phone, and it's filled with coke. An airplane crashes. The three guys on board are killed, and this now goes missing, and the dudes who this cocaine copious, it's a small like single engine plane, but it is packed to the rafters with cocaine. Probably millions of dollars worth of coke. It goes missing. The people who you know it belongs to assumingly are looking for it. You then cut over to Paul Walker, who is like a dive instructor, and this is in, I believe, Prince Andrew, somewhere like in the Caribbean. They lived in on an island, very touristy kind of place. And Paul Walker is a dive instructor. As the film is just getting going, has a bad day with a guy who's like a supervisor, a boss. He pushes him into the water. He gets fired. He has dreams of being a salvager and having a nice boat. And he's a dude who can, with just a snorkel, can go underwater for like 20 minutes or something, it seems. He's got, one of these guys who's been born around, lived this whole life around water, has great lung capacity, swimming ability. He understands aquatic life, what kind of sharks there are. Jessica Alba works at the same place or something similar, where she gives, it's like SeaWorld, and she gives an instructional talk on sharks and stuff. They're dating and very much in love. Aww. And then Josh Brolin, they really get into him too much, but Paul Walker used to work for him in some capacity. And then Josh Brolin hears that Paul Walker's out of work, so he's like, come work for me again. And Paul Walker's like, I'm doing my own thing. And Josh Brolin initially comes off as like this kind of hippie dude who has a boat and a company that's doing well. But through his performance, you can tell there's something more there, something ominous behind the curtain. And then Scott Conn and Ashley Scott are on vacation. They come visit. Paul Walker and Scott Conn go way back. They're really close friends. Ashley Scott is a lady that Scott Conn met the night before at a bar or something and said, come with me on vacation to this glorious island and wonderful Caribbean seas. And she and Jessica Alba kind of become friends real quick. And they're out snorkeling on a boat out in the middle of nowhere. And Paul Walker loses his watch. His watch falls off. So he goes back down to get it. And while he does, he's roaming around the sand for his watch. He finds this little, like a dagger kind of deal with some, looks like rubies on it or something. And it's an antique. And so they go back down, they find some stuff, and they believe that they have found items that belong to a famous pirate, and they give some backstory on that guy. And the dude had a fortune, and so they're looking for something, anything at all that identifies that this is part of a shipwreck, so that they can make claim to it. And if they find a fortune, they have their fortune. While they're doing that, and this is coming, they inadvertently stumble across the cocaine-filled plane that's resting at the bottom of the ocean. After much debate, they decide that they should leave the cocaine plane alone for a time until they can stake their claim to this treasure that they haven't. They've found a few chunks of stuff. They haven't found the treasure yet. And then once they find the treasure and they get their claim, they'll phone in the cocaine plane with 3 dead bodies in it. Okay, fair enough. But Scott Conn, who's a lawyer, and these are all young people, are in their late 20s maybe. He works with criminals all the time. So he sees an opportunity with cocaine and money, goes to sell drugs, and that draws the attention of the people who are looking for this cocaine, which is a really stupid idea on his part. And so the drug cartel guy brings in Scott Walker and says, you're going to go get my coke. because you know where it is, and you got the aquatic skills to go get it. Scott Walker says you can't do that with a snorkel. We need equipment. They give him $30,000 to go get the equipment, and then Josh Brolin gets involved. Turns out he's not the happy-go-lucky hippie boat guy. He's the one behind the coke, and there's a whole from there violence and kidnapping and shoot 'em up and people get ate by sharks. As these young pretty white people have to deal with the world of drugs. And then the film is over. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not gonna. This is how it ends. But as a whole, Into the Blue, it's a solid, tight, self-contained story. This is no big, massive epic. It's just a handful of actors, 6 actors that I recognize, and a bunch of henchmen types. And it's 2005. It looks good, well directed, competently made. Who was the director on this? John Stockwell, and he did a good job. It's a good looking film. It's an interesting story. The writing is crisp. Everything is story structured where it's supposed to be. So good pacing, good tone. Everything that is objective about making a film. It's competently made. But I think the strength of this film are the actors. Paul Walker, he's a pretty boy and everything, but he's a good actor. He's a good lead. Maybe not blow your mind, but he's solid. He's a very solid actor. He's right for this role. Jessica Alba does a good job. Again, she's a pretty girl, but she can act and does a good job with this role. These two characters are the moral compass of the film. Scotty Conn, he's the good guy jerk. You want to hate him, but you can't. He does so much. He keeps getting himself into trouble. He keeps getting everybody else into trouble. But he's got so much charm and charisma. You still like him. You're still rooting for him. You kind of want him to get his ass kicked, but not killed. And that's a credit to Scott Conn, who's a really good actor. I've seen in a bunch of films. He may not have a heck of a lot of range from what I've seen, but what he does really well, and he's perfect for this role. Who was it? Ashley Scott. Oh my God, Jessica Alba was a hot woman. She's attractive. Ashley Scott is like on fire. Like, good Lord, they're all attractive people. And the film uses that. There's some beauty shots up in the first act. Here's some pretty kids being pretty, swimming around. Girls are in bikinis. There's a fairly gratuitous. Ashley Scott is sunbathing on the boat, and you start the shot, and there's her crotch right there. They didn't let that go to waste, but it didn't distract from the plot. It didn't distract from the story too much. Once the first act is concluded and the film gets going, they set that to the side and they focus on story. So they cast pretty kids to be pretty, but they also cast talented actors who are attractive people. So good for the film. It used that what it had, but it didn't abuse it. It didn't go too far with it. I felt, if all that stuff it fit within the framework of the story, and it didn't rely on it too much. It's there in the first act where you're establishing all the characters and the themes, and here's what you need to know for the next 2 acts. So it used that there to keep things entertaining for the first 20 minutes, and it's right at 20 minutes that bam, things take off. The plot gets going. So again, well structured, well paced, well toned. But the acting, it's the acting. Josh Brolin is Josh Brolin, being Josh Brolin, and he does a fine job with it. You can, especially at the end of the film, pick apart some of the logic, but it's not. Movie isn't the greatest, and it's not the worst. It's solid. It's a solid, tight, self-contained film. It's enjoyable, and I'd recommend it. To anybody who has my sensibilities in films. I think you'd watch this. You're going to enjoy it. and have a good time with it. So, Into the Blue from 2005, John Stockwell. The only downside to this film was that it's depressing because Paul Walker died. And when he was big in the early 2000s, and he was in the Fast and the Furious movies and all that stuff, I never really cared for those films. So I never really got too attached to Paul Walker. When he died, it was like, damn, that sucks. He was only 40 years old. He was just at a charity for tsunami victims. It was tough. But I wasn't a huge fan of the guy. Since then, I've seen a number of other projects that he's been in, and I saw this way back, but it was before I knew who Paul Walker was. It's one of those things where you see a guy in a movie, and then a few years later, you learn his name, and oh, Paul Walker. It was like that. And so he gives a good performance here, and it's like, it's heartbreaking. The guy he was a young looking 40-year-old with a lot left in him, a lot of life to live. And so that's the really only downside to this film is you're sitting there going, fucking poor Paul Walker, man. We lost that guy. He was good. He was good in this. He wasn't just a pretty boy standing there. He brought depth to this character and helped make the film work. And it's a crying goddamn shame. So Into the Blue, it's like a solid B of a film. You're not going to get your mind blown. Once you see the ship with the plane with the cocaine go down, and then everything else happens, eventually that's going to come up, and that's going to be the story. And then they run into the drug dealers, and you're like, that will happen. You got their drugs. You're going to run into the drug dealers. So it's nothing that, there's no twist. You're like, holy shit, it was zombie ninjas the whole time. Now you know what's coming, but it's still a solid film within that. So Into the Blue, 2005, Paul Walker, Scotty Conn, James Brolin, directed by Josh Stockwell. It's a solid film. Go check it out. So that's here for the White or White Guys show. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that stuff, and check out my other videos, and I'll love you for it. Cheers.